Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the Foundations metagame. This idea for today's video was originally submitted by one of my supporters on Patreon, the idea being trumpeting Carnosaur alongside these duplication effects, and our deck is built in such a way that the only cards we can discover with trumpeting Carnosaur are going to be these 2 and 3 mana sorceries that let us make a copy of a creature. It will have haste and we have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, but if we can just copy the Carnosaur a bunch and attack with the hasty copies right away, we might just be able to win the game on the spot. And then if we actually take a look at how the deck plays out and we start sorting things by their actual curve, the deck looks a little bit more reasonable since we do actually have some cheaper effects that give us some interaction, like the Bottomless Pool bouncing an opposing creature back for 1 mana, even though it's as a sorcery. Then we've got the Whale, which can bounce a creature back at instant speed using the adventure, and then a Roaring Furnace, a 2 mana removal spell if we can play it with enough cards in hand, and then the Steaming Sauna is actually a pretty nice card draw engine as well to help find the Carnosaur. And then we've got some ramp with another room card here, which has a combined mana value of 9, so it doesn't get discovered by the Carnosaur, but we can play the 3 mana room, which lets us find a basic to put on the battlefield tapped, and then the wait room occasionally lets us manifest a dread as well. And then there's Altanak, which does require a land to be in the graveyard in order to ramp, but we do have the full set of Fabled Passage, which we can sacrifice early and then later return, at which point we can sacrifice it and have the land enter untapped. And we also have a lot of Surveil lands between 4 Hedge Maze, 4 Thundering Falls, and 2 Commercial District, which can also maybe surveil a land into the graveyard, at which point Altanak can also return those from the graveyard. So the deck is pretty consistent at enabling Altanak, and then it turns into a 2 mana ramp card, which is pretty good. And then, of course, we need our 8 duplication effect. Could potentially shave the numbers here, since drawing them is not ideal, since they're not going to be doing a whole lot for us in hand. But we also don't want to run out of copies in the deck to cascade into, so I'm still running all 8, but you could potentially decrease the number. There's not a huge difference between the two. The main advantage of Electro Duplicate is that it can also be flashed back for 4 mana, but usually we're not going to actually cast these duplication effects from hand, and instead we're just going to discover into them with a Carnosaur. Now, of course, if our opponent keeps up instant speed removal for Carnosaur, our game plan becomes a lot more difficult to pull off, but that's also where maybe casting the Whale for 6 mana can force the opponent into a spot where they need to use removal in their turn to tap out, and then we can maybe find a window to resolve the Carnosaur and win the game on the spot. So that's kind of our game plan. And then the mana base, besides the lands we mentioned, also has Thornspire Verge, which will reliably make both colors, and then lots of basics to find with Fabled Passage and the Moldering Gym. So yeah, that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand's missing the Carnosaur. Do have 2 Surveil lands, a bit of ramp, some interaction, so hard casting the Whale's also a backup plan. So I'll try it. Turn 1 Forest and Leather Elves, always nice. And then don't need Thornspire Verge anymore. Opponent black-green with Overlord for ramp. Alright, the Roaring Furnace can take out the Elves at least. Next turn we could decide to ramp. As we draw another Whale. And I suppose we can also manifest Dread with a wait room if needed. Ooh, Vraska, I see. So this might be a doubling season Planeswalkers type of deck. Found a Carnosaur, excellent. So as long as our opponent taps out here, we should be good to go. And there's not too much giving away that we might be comboing out of nowhere. Opponent draws. They could also activate the Cottage, but I don't expect them to. Alright, sadly our opponent is keeping up a bunch of mana here. So the Carnosaur plan's unlikely to work out, I want to say. But Vraska's also taking up each turn. So this turn I can decide between unlock the sauna, or maybe set up the whale somehow to try and have them tap out and then win with Carnosaur. So yeah, maybe unlocking the sauna is fine for now, although whale could start pressuring Vraska, which is maybe still the preferred play. So I'll just pass for now, and then end of turn we can flash in the whale. Opponent proliferates. And now a Liliana would be the perfect answer to a whale, but we can play it end of turn. And then Electro Duplicate can go. And then I'm kind of hoping that if I flash in whale end of turn, our opponent fully taps out to pay the ward to go for the Throated. And that would open up the window for Carnosaur to win the game. Otherwise, we probably need to finish off one of their Planeswalkers. Yeah, go for the Throat, pay the ward. And yeah, that's perfect. Untap. And win the game. So, besides being kind of a one-trick pony, the deck does have a few tricks up its sleeve to kind of make the opponent tap out in certain spots. Alright, that's already enough. But may as well make more dinosaurs, because who doesn't love dinosaurs? Alright, that's the last one. Never mind, there's one more. And one more. I guess there's 8 copy effects total. We discarded 1. So yeah, that's 7 Carnosaur copies. And that's game. Could even finish off some of the Planeswalkers here, but let's see how low the number can go. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a little bit of interaction and potentially card draw with a sauna, but no real ramp, no Carnosaur, so I think we can do better. Alright, found a Carnosaur. Only one piece of interaction, but 2 surveil lands to maybe help find some additional tools. I'll say no to the land, also good to have in graveyard in case we find Altanak. The rest takes a pool and also sees the Carnosaur, at least that one they cannot take away with another duress. Although could potentially see a Deep Cavern Bat, exile it, but we have plenty of removal to eventually get it back. And yeah, there's the Bat, might go for the Gym now, just to take away our ramp. Takes Carnosaur. Alright, so plan is simple, a ramp to 6 mana, either draw another Carnosaur or find a way to bounce the Bat and get our Carnosaur back. Now we could potentially die to the Slasher combo here, but opponent doesn't seem to have it. And yeah, next turn I can also manifest Dread. And now Liliana can start making us discard as well. Alright, so that is certainly a lot of disruption. But the good news is that we could just top deck a Carnosaur here and win the game. Duplication, that one's gonna probably get discarded at some point. Manifest Dread, and then I guess we'll keep the duplication as a surprise for now. Well, the opponent can just -2 Liliana. The opponent's gonna keep on plussing.
Drop it.
Now, if we want to get Carnosaur back and cast it right away, we might need more than 6 mana. Our opponent probably has a different removal spell for our face-down card. A Sheoldred's Edict, in fact, although they must have chosen the wrong mode. Maybe they thought this was a token, when in reality it's not. Although, as it turns out, our opponent's mistake did not matter, since we top-decked the Carnosaur, which should just win us the game here with a single black mana. There's nothing our opponent can really do to disrupt us, so hopefully that makes them feel a bit better about it. And with our face-down card in play, counting as a non-token creature, it also would have protected the Carnosaur, so the only way they could have potentially survived is by minusing Liliana and having the Edict available, but our opponents didn't know what they were up against. And there we have it. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Missing Carnosaur, but we've got a nice mix of ramp and interaction. Start by fetching either a red or green. I guess second red makes more sense. Opponent on a green-white tokens deck. So they could have Get Lost as instant speed removal. Otherwise I'm not expecting too much. And then, if they are playing cards like Enduring Innocence, we might want to keep a bounce spell for it, since destroying it just means it comes back. So this turn we could just keep up the whale, or we could furnace the 1/1, which seems a bit drastic, but eventually I'm gonna want to unlock the 5 mana room, so might as well. Then Jim can get a second blue source. Bonus got the talent. That one we cannot bounce. And Altanak can help a ramp as well. But may as well use the Jim this turn, and then next turn I can maybe double spell Altanak with something else. Or we could again go for the Sauna. So yeah, just a waiting room for Carnosaur to hopefully win the game. Especially if our opponent taps out. This green-white tokens deck now also playing with cards like Up the Beanstalk. There's a removal spell that also triggers Beanstalk that gets a discount, I believe, if it's targeting an attacking creature. So that's not gonna get the discount when targeting our Carnosaur when we try to copy it. And there we see Up the Beanstalk. And then the white Caretaker's Talents also synergizing with a green Overlord, making a land token basically. So those are all things to keep in mind. Their opponent draws a few cards. And yeah, I think we go for Sauna since we already have 6 mana next turn. So we're just looking for the Carnosaur. If they use a Get Lost to destroy our enchantment, they may not have it when we combo off. So their opponent can draw quite a few cards here, between Beanstalk and the Talent, with all the tokens they can make. So having them tap out is going to be a challenge. Elspeth. Only 1 mana left, so yeah, technically we could top deck Carnosaur and just win here. And it's gonna be a whale. So, could play the whale end of turn to maybe start pressuring Elspeth. And then we can maybe bounce some tokens that get in the way of the whale attacking it. Yeah, that's probably the play. Find a land. Once your opponent levels up Talent all the way, they start applying a lot more pressure. Another Talent. Elspeth makes a token and draws 2 cards now. So with a ward from the whale, they should not be able to remove it anymore. Although it does enter tapped, so we have to wait until end of turn. It's going to be the Green Overlord now, triggering Beanstalk as well. So that's the combo we mentioned with Caretaker's Talent. So we should be able to deal with Elspeth at least. If we bounce the token. Can use Altanak for a bit more ramp, and then surveil with our falls. And then don't need another Fabled Passage. So if necessary we can copy the whale if we need to pressure more planeswalkers. I doubt we're actually gonna attack for lethal with it. Our opponent's still copying creatures as opposed to the everywhere a land token. And yeah, Cease from Slumber. I guess it gets a discount when targeting a tapped creature. But yeah, still, if they're trying to target Carnosaur, that's going to be 5 mana. So yeah, outside of maybe a Get Lost, they won't have many great cheap answers. I will use the whale just to stem the bleeding. They could sack their creature with Fountain Port to essentially fizzle the creature half of my adventure. And that's what they'll do, but now they're tapped out. So again, if we top deck Carnosaur, we win the game. And then I should fetch in my upkeep to thin out the deck some more. Because yeah, there's no knowledge about the bottom cards of our library. And this way there's 1 fewer basic we can top deck. And that's no Carnosaur, sadly. Alright, so in that case, bounce a token. And then Manifest Dread. Although, kind of hoping I don't find Carnosaur now, because it's not gonna trigger. And we did not, so getting closer and closer to eventually finding it. We've already seen a lot of our copy effects here, but still no Carnosaur. At least we can still hardcast some of these after playing our 6 mana Dino, in case we don't have enough copies to win the game on the spot. But yeah, we're certainly running out of time here. Opponent does have Get Lost, so I'm surprised they haven't used it on the Sauna earlier. So yeah, we're just hoping for the best at this point. Opponent levels up Talent all the way, so they can hit for 6. So they've got us pretty much on a 2-turn clock. And this is my last chance to top deck. As our opponent's fully tapped out. Alright, so Carnosaur for the win. Opponent's got a discard to hand size. And there's a Carnosaur. So let's see if we have enough. Opponent's at 23. I can still cast a duplication. So we should have just enough. There's one more. So that's 21 damage. And we can add 7 more. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be necessary. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. And we get to rank up here as well. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is not great. Having 2 duplication effects in hand is not ideal, even though the rest of our hand's decent, maybe a bit heavy on the tapped lands. I'll take a mulligan. This hand has a similar problem, so I think we go to 5. Still no Carnosaur, but I'm going to keep at some point. So I probably want to keep 1 piece of interaction, and then keep the cheaper ramp card. So definitely not an ideal start, but we still have the tools to eventually get there. So for now, can just fetch for an island. So next turn I could use Altanak or have the option of pool plus tap land. I guess we'll wait until end of turn to decide. If our opponent puts a counter on the claw, I would be tempted to bounce it. Okay. So in that case I'll need island for sure. Could also keep up the whale, I suppose. Although, seems like a good window for a tap land. And then we can maybe keep the whale for a Screaming Nemesis, for instance. And then now Altanak can return the Surveil land, which is maybe a slight upgrade over Fabled Passage. Opponent just replays the claw. Another Altanak. Alright, so play land and pass. No burn spell end of turn. No haste creature either. So gonna wait to see if they pump. They do. Yeah, let's use the whale. Should buy us more time. Next turn we can double Altanak, and then if we top deck Carnosaur we can just win. Duplicate, not quite what we were hoping for. Opponent just sitting on a handful of burn spells, I guess. At some point they're gonna start using them. So get back the Surveil lands. Say no to islands. And then get back Fabled Passage, I guess, to thin out the deck some more. Alright, could also now play the Sauna as opposed to the Whale. Although Whale is a decent blocker if we played main phase, so maybe that's the priority. Still not great in the face of a Screaming Nemesis, because then we would take 6 damage, but they haven't presented one yet. So I think this is reasonable. And then next turn we can maybe play the Sauna to get closer to our Carnosaur. Swiss Spear we can block. Possible they have some pump spells as well, cards like Monstrous Rage. Duplication. So, yeah, the locker room, eventually an option 2. For now, I don't think we bother with a Furnace, because our opponent can likely enable Prowess, and I can only deal 2 damage. So let's just go straight for the Sauna, and maybe in a future turn we can get a Furnace going. Keep the Whale on defense. And there's a Challenger. Do we see an attack? We do. So yeah, Monstrous Rage on Challenger would be a trade. So I think we actually block Swiss Spear. See a Monstrous Rage, and then likely another instant to trigger Prowess. Another Monstrous Rage makes sense. Although now we should still be able to take out the Challenger with the Furnace. Assuming they don't trigger Prowess, or we can top deck Carnosaur to just win the game. And yeah, with only 1 red mana up, there's no way they can really interfere here. So yeah, was a weird game. Opponent must have just had a handful of monstrous rages that they couldn't deploy. But this was a mulligan to 5 as well on our part. So yeah, the deck keeps on delivering. But it's nice to know that even if we didn't top deck Carnosaur, we still had kind of a game plan going forward. Remove the Challenger, and then start drawing extra cards to eventually draw the Carnosaur. And yeah, this is probably overkill at this point. Could also decide to put the duplication in hand. Alright. Go to attackers, and that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand seems fine. Don't have any ramp, but we do have lots of removal. And more importantly, the Carnosaur. Opponent blue-white. Is it Oculus? Is it more of a control deck? I see enchantments. Alright, so definitely want to take out the Glimmer before they get too much mileage out of it. So means needing to get Mountain and Furnace. So my next turn may not be all that exciting, since I don't have blue for the whale. As we draw another one. Say no to duplication, although the jig is up. And then next turn Fabled Passage will be untapped. So the Aura deck shouldn't have any instant speed answers to the Carnosaur, so that's the good news. And they seem to be stuck on 2 lands. Now they could have Shard Mage's Rescue to protect their creatures, so the whale's not guaranteed to hit its targets. But it's still worth a try here, since we're not doing anything else. And next turn we could try twice. Could also unlock the Sauna here. But yeah, Shard Mage's Rescue protects Hull Creeper. Take 2. And get 2+1 counters. And play Scavenger. Alright, so we're just a land away from potentially winning the game. So maybe instead of keeping up interaction for Hull Creeper when they may have another Shard Mage's Rescue, I think we just go for Sauna, maximize our odds of drawing a land. Has to be an untapped land. Alright, so the game continues. Could see removal for my enchantment here. Sheltered by ghosts would make sense. Creeper turns into Scavenger, and we found a land. Now our opponent did keep 2 mana up. Small chance they have a bounce spell or something like a Get Lost. So we could try and play differently, where we keep up interaction, and then next turn, once our opponent may be tapped out, go for Carnosaur to win the game. I don't hate that idea, because if we miss on Carnosaur, it's kind of game over. And I don't think our opponent can win the game with us at 12 life through double whale. They found land 3. Opponent attacks. Try whale number 1. And then if they rescue, we can try again. no more lies to counter, so they actually had a counterspell, good to know. So that would have stopped our Carnosaur. That worked. And now for 1 mana there shouldn't be anything that really stops us. So yeah, I'm glad we took the slower approach here, just to make sure. Because you often only get one shot at it with the Carnosaur, and if it doesn't work, you're in trouble. So, given enough life total and resources, why not make sure the coast is clear? And that's already 20 trample damage past the Scavenger. But it is quite tempting to just make a few more dinosaurs. Alright, that's the last one. And attack. Sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hands not perfect. If I could replace Electroduplicate with some removal, it would be a lot better. But I don't think it's bad enough to mulligan. We have ramp, decent mana, and of course Carnosaur. So here I need to get either a red or green. Might as well make it red so we have double red. And that way Verge is enabled. So if I find Altanak, I can already use it turn 2 to return Fabled Passage. Opponent on a domain deck. So they do tend to have some instant speed answers to Carnosaur between Get Lost and there's also a Leyline Binding, assuming they have enough types. So this could be a tricky matchup if our opponent manages to figure out what we're up to. And our draw steps haven't been amazing so far. I'll get a second blue source for the sauna. But yeah, in 2 turns we could just win the game if our opponent's tapped out. For now they have 3 basic types, so a 3 mana Leyline Binding. And we've got land 6, so yeah, just need them to tap out now. Opponent's gonna Get Lost or enchantments. Sort of implies that they might have another one in hand if they're willing to fire it off. And yeah, opponent's tapped out, so that should be game. This might have gotten tricky if our opponent had, let's say, the green Overlord, make an everywhere land token, and then has access to white mana for 1 mana Leyline Binding. But luckily for us, it was the white Overlord instead. And sometimes it's just that easy. Yeah, at first I thought this deck might have been more of a meme, but the more I play it, and the more I'm convinced that it might be a real thing. Undefeated so far. There was even a game I recorded, but the audio had some issues, so that one didn't make the final cut. So I believe that puts us at 7-0 so far. But there were definitely some close ones in there. Alright, sweet. And there we have it. So yeah, if you want a quick deck for your daily wins, but also apparently a deck to start ranking up, this Carnosaur Cascade deck seems to be the real deal. So give it a try before people figure out what's happening, because once they do, they will probably adapt and start keeping up instant speed removal, and then the deck's win percentage is definitely going to start plummeting. So the deck's lifespan is probably not going to be very long, but for the time being, it's a fun one to try out. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.